Hey there, I'm Taz Singh, and I've been working with communities for as long as I can remember. Fundamentally, communities are made up of people, so this is my journey going to those communities and talking to those people. Come along with me. Awesome. So I'm back now with my good friend Evan Bacon, and by a good friend I mean I met him yesterday, kind of at the after party for the conference. But I've been following Evan, I guess, for a little while. Like we built everything at Guild using Expo. We use a lot of Evan's work. I think what in particular, like you do a lot of like the web work on Expo.
Yeah, I work on Expo Web, Expo CLI, some of the native APIs, but mostly all the dev tooling.
That's awesome. So I mean, like, yeah. So I end up just using a lot of Evan's work, and so I saw him like, oh, I recognize you. Like, we use a lot of your work, and so yeah, good to see you in person. Like how's things been for you?
Been great. Yeah, we've got lots coming out with Expo. Just working on open source. You're living in Texas, yeah. It's a good time.
So what he mentioned yesterday that he's living. You live in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
So how long have you been living in Austin for?
Grew up in Austin.
You grew up in Austin?
Yeah. Moved there from here in Florida, actually, when I was like really young. And it's nice. It's got a great tech scene, great vibe.
Like that city is booming. You've probably seen it grow a lot in the time that you've lived there then.
Yeah, just before we came out here, the Tesla Gigafactory opened up. It's like massive.
Yeah.
And I've like never seen anything that big in Texas.
You've never seen anything that big in Texas. Like, I mean, that's how you know it's big if it's big for Texas. Yeah. So like I'm a big fan of Formula One. Do you watch Formula One?
Oh yeah. They got that Formula One track there. It's awesome.
They have an F1 track, like Circuit of the Americas. It's one of the best tracks in the world, and so I've always wanted to go kind of see the Formula One race there. But admittedly, we were consulting with a company based out of Austin, Texas, for about 2 years, and so they brought us all into town. But we arrived like the day of the race, and so we weren't able to see the race because we arrived like that evening. And so I was like so gutted that we're arriving the evening of this Formula One race in Austin, Texas, which is something we wanted to do for so long, but just haven't been able to do it. So I'm guessing you grew up with like Longhorns and all of that, or
yeah, like riding on horses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like lassoing and
just cowboying around.
Yeah, just cowboying around.
So basically, his cowboy experience has made him the cowboy of Webpack now, in a way where you've kind of had to lasso Webpack to make it do all the things that Expo wants to do with it. Because like for me, I've been using cross-platform React Native since 2016. I remember how difficult it was back then. You had to do everything manually. You had to set up all the Webpack manually. Obviously, Metro Bundler kind of did what Metro Bundler did, but it was all very manual. These days, you just kind of use Expo, and you use like the Webpack config and everything, which I think you wrangled, right?
Yeah.
And it just kind of works. It just kind of works out of the box. So yeah, can you tell me more about your experience there? Like how do you take something complicated and make it easy?
Oh man. Okay, well, with Webpack in particular, we wanted to use Webpack for web just because it's kind of like the gold standard for customization in the bundler. And like you said, native uses the Metro bundler, which is made by Facebook, and it's kind of one size fits all and very aggressive at caching. And it's just like not, like the web world moves very fast, and we want like that same speed. In fact, we want that for native as well. So moving over to Webpack for web seemed like a really good idea. We also want to maybe move native over to Webpack as well, so that we can
Oh, interesting. Okay, cool.
Because a shared system.
My understanding is that the Metro bundler kind of stores like in memory in a way. It kind of has like addresses in memory.
Has lots of caches. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like how do you even get to do that with Webpack? Because I mean, like getting Webpack to work with Metro is kind of a whole thing, but getting Metro to work in the way that Webpack kind of works is a whole other thing.
Yeah, well, like I said, like Webpack's super customizable, so you can create and configure basically any part of it. Like a lot of people talk about maybe how Webpack is kind of slow, but then they also talk about how Vercel and Next.js are this like gold standard of speed, and they're all built on Webpack. So it kind of shows like how if you're really good at customizing it, you can make it as fast as you want, make it do whatever you want.
Right.
So
Because I think there was that project Hall, if you remember Hall,
Yeah.
which was React Native mobile on Webpack. So
it's
like
called Repack now.
it's called Repack now. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So I'm clearly out of date. and so is that project still live? Like what's going on there?
Yeah, someone over in Poland works on it and does a pretty good job. It's got some nice features.
So are you looking at using that then, or?
Okay, so with the bundling situation, you can kind of go one of two directions. And you end up having to go kind of half and half. But you can make the bundler work in a way that works with React Native, or you can make React Native works in a way that works with every bundler. So it's pretty straightforward to make like plugins that will enable like Webpack to host images in the way that like Metro hosts images and that React Native expects images, or you could kind of change how React Native works to expect images the way the web expects images, which then means that not only Webpack works, but also like ES-Build and like Bun and all these other like really exciting, super fast projects. So it takes much longer, but we do like to kind of shift how the runtime works, the native part, to be more like the web in kind of standard spec compliant ways.
Yeah.
So Repack kind of goes this other way, where it makes a lot of plugins which enable React, like Webpack, to work more like Metro, which is really good, and it makes it work.
Yeah.
But in general, like the idea behind just having another bundler is really like make React Native more agnostic to any bundler.
Right. Which makes a lot of sense because I mean historically it's been very coupled to Metro.
Right.
And so that's been both like rewarding but also limiting in a lot of ways.
Right.
We're trying to get it to work on web platforms, for example. It would make more sense for it to work on another bundler. So basically as
so
I
many
said,
bundlers, yeah.
as I said, he's wrangled so many things, and like my experience of getting React Native, like just raw React Native, to work across every single platform has been a lot of pain and a lot of suffering, and so Evan's work has now made it easy. So the other area that I know you're kind of thinking about is navigation, and kind of every platform navigation. It's an area that I'm also very passionate about. You mentioned you have a bunch of thoughts in that area. Something about like Next style file system routing. Something about what the platform provides.
So last night we were talking about some of these things, as we do at parties, and like people want navigation that works across web and native. But on web, you kind of do like routing, and navigation, like swipe back, is all like built into the mobile like browser. Whereas on native, you have full control of it. So like you have navigation, you also have routing, you have to control basically every part of the stack. And when you have situations like that, it makes it hard to make it cross-platform, but it also means that you could create abstractions that make native a bit more like web again, where you could do things like the PHP style, like if you have files in a file system, each one of those represents a route automatically.
Right.
I have a project like this on GitHub. I made it both with Webpack and another one with Metro, just to kind of show that the idea works pretty much bundler agnostically. The Webpack one is much nicer because you can do things like require all, and be like one file and then just require everything in that directory, and then as screens, add them to React Navigation, and then you have some kind of like config file in each folder which says like this is a tab navigator or a drawer navigator or a stack navigator. And that's pretty nice, because you kind of create screens in this very ergonomic way. I actually thought it wouldn't work for a while, but then I remembered iOS storyboards. I don't know if you've played with those very much.
No, I don't know what that is.
They're like, even iOS developers do not like using them, but they have this system where you kind of like place view controllers, and then you have like a line which indicates like how you'll transition from one to another. But that like division means you could do a similar type of thing with pages, where the pages exist and then you just have some kind of like maybe static config which indicates how screens move between each other or around each other. So it's a big project and it's really interesting. I definitely like doing it more with Webpack because you have like React Suspense, so you can lazy load all the screens. So maybe like maybe if you had something like an app clip where there's like a 10 megabyte download limit, you could lazy load every screen except for the first one, and then when you like hit the settings screen, React Suspense like downloads it from a CDN in the background, and then you can kind of grow dynamically past that. Or just in general, like not downloading the entire app is a pretty good idea.
It's a great idea on web.
Yeah,
but like admittedly on mobile, like it's kind of convention to download the entire app, isn't it?
Right.
And so
Yeah.
like you download it from the App Store ahead of time, and then you always have the app. While on web, you want to load it very incrementally. And so
Right. Well, you always have the
I'm not even
scale
sure.
and
Does Metro Bundler even do lazy imports?
No.
I don't think they
kind of
do,
have a
right?
thing. There's like a pull request, but it's been open for a while, and it only works in like kind of debug mode, like development.
Right.
This is a bit more of an Expo area with like Expo Publish and like the hosted service, because the way React Native works in development is very different to the way it works in production. Where in the development, there's like a development server. So you can like just go to the browser and ping like localhost / and then a file path or an asset path and get it, similar to web. But then React Native doesn't have like this kind of concept of hosting without like Expo. So what they do is they just like embed all of the code like in the system. So naturally the lazy loading that is provided in React Native works similarly. So they just disable it like when you're in production. Whereas you probably want, like with Expo, we could make it more analogous like across development and production, because there's kind of always a CDN involved, and then you have some kind of system which like intercepts assets and keeps them cached.
Right.
It's kind of like a super ideal website, because like on web you can do offline, but you kind of avoid it. Because like if you mess up a service worker, it kind of like corrupts your website.
I feel like I'm not sure if you know Sarah Vieira. Like she's a really good friend of mine. We did a lot of comedy together. Super talented. But I every time I hear like service worker, I always think of Sarah, because she has a lovely story of when she created a service worker for one of her sites, and she messed up the config in some way, and they had to sell the whole domain and buy a new domain entirely, because people's browsers just like aggressively cached like that old domain with that old service worker and would never update ever again. And so she had to like change. The company had to change domains entirely because of service worker config.
Right.
And so
so one other way around that would be if everyone deleted Chrome and then reinstalled it fresh, which is totally unreasonable on web, but on native you do that all the time, because you just push a new native version through the App Store, it updates automatically. So if you had some kind of service worker type system and it corrupted, just push through the App Store again, download again, and then you're like good to go.
Like just wait for the OS level update, and you'll get the new code.
Right.
Yeah.
So we can do things that like web, it's like web can technically do them, but it's not super like safe to do. And on native, you can like pretty naively do it and get it to work most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's kind of something we're playing with EAS update. I recommend checking it out if you haven't.
Admittedly, I haven't. So tell me more about that. So like EAS is what, like Expo App Services, and then update is kind of what like your automated update system. But how does that work?
Works really well.
Is that something like you work on, Evan? Do you work on EAS update?
I work on build and submit. Update is our newer product. I don't work on update directly.
Like who works on update?
James Ide, John Samp, just really talented individuals from my team.
Gotcha. So that's why it's so good. Okay, gotcha. So Evan has nothing to do with it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, that's exactly why it's so good.
But yeah, so like and you work on EAS build and
submit.
So
that's for building the app natively and then submitting it to the store.
Submitting it to the App Store, and then update is kind of the third part of that, where you want to update.
Yeah, like instantly over the air.
Over-the-air updates.
That JavaScript part of it. So it's very similar to like a hosted service.
Yep.
Which is what we currently do with Expo Publish, but this is far more powerful. So you get things that you're used to in like a web hosted service. Like you can do all these like rollbacks, release channels. You can have like CI, publish a new version on every commit, and you can like see each version.
Oh, wow.
Then you could do things like add analytics to it, and you can see which version's faster or slower. So it's really powerful. And then like with iOS, there's really like no concept of rollbacks, at least as far as I know, because you can't like roll back if you break anything. You could check out the code, but you can't re-upload that version. So you have to then modify that version with a new build version in order to roll it back. Very long process. And
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah.
so it's like if you don't use, you're kind of opting out of rollbacks, which you may not
and
want
at the end of the day, I mean, I'm a big fan of undo. You know, it's one of those things for me, like on a very philosophical level. In reality, in this world that we live in, there's no real concept of undo. You can't go back and undo something, right? But in this virtual world, in this technical world that we live in, undo, there's do. There's undo, and then there's redo. All those things are now possible because of this virtual world that we live in, because of, kind of how all these things work. I'm a big proponent of, if something goes wrong, the ability to undo that thing and then redo the thing differently is fundamental to doing anything, in my opinion. A big part of I think every developer out there has released botch code. Like everyone has botched a deployment at some point of their career.
Not me, but yeah.
not me, Evan Bacon. All right, Evan Bacon. That's but essentially the lesser devs of us, like myself, definitely botched deployments, definitely messed up things at some point.
It's brutal when it happens.
A big part of it is essentially what's our undo strategy, right? Like how do we roll back? How do we get out of this state, and then how do we get into a better state? And so essentially EAS update supports those things.
Yeah, it brings
across
them
platforms.
to native and then across platform.
Yeah,
because maybe Android supports it, but if iOS doesn't, then you're
then you're in this weird limbo where you got to think about it and you got to architect it and all that. Yeah.
A lot of these patterns that they just come from the web. The web it's so advanced in the types of patterns that it has created. And these things, I think, to a lot of people seem kind of, I don't know, archaic or something. But in the mobile app development world, there's not a lot of it. So bringing that to mobile app development, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Because you get that more advanced feeling.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you mean. So essentially, as I mentioned, Guild is built using React Native Web, using Expo, but as a part of that, using React Native Web, and so we're currently releasing on the web platform, and kind of all these same things are concerns for us. It's okay, we're so used to developing on web. How do we get those same types of experiences on mobile? Because obviously mobile has their own kind of release pattern, their own release cadence. Do we start feature flagging things? Because I think feature flags are I think an overall good practice. But then how does that apply? How does that apply to where we can continuously release on web versus not continually releasing on mobile? But it sounds like with EAS update, you can maybe get a better balance between those two things.
Yeah. You just get all of that, especially the kind of A/B system, because you can deploy different branches to different users, and it's pretty awesome. I've been thinking about Expo Web actually a lot today, and app clips. Have you used app clips before?
I've never used app clips. No.
Are you an iOS user or Android?
user? For me, I use iOS. Yeah.
So you've probably heard of app clips.
I've seen them on the operating system and stuff. I've never written one myself.
I've barely even used them. They're really hard to just make because it's an app inside of another app.
Yeah.
And making the first app is already pretty hard.
I'm guessing it's using iOS extensions to do that.
I think maybe.
Because I know with iOS extensions, that's a whole rabbit hole in and of itself. Because for context, maybe about 3-4 years ago now, I was building a peer-to-peer mesh networking app over mobile. So my phone would connect to your phone, would connect to everyone else's phone. And for example, on Android, that was dead simple. You could just reach into the OS, reroute all the networking packets right into your app, and everything just kind of worked. On iOS, it was a pain because you had to you had to overwrite the networking stack, but then you had to use an iOS extension. iOS extension had I think an 8 megabyte heap size limit, and so basically we had to keep a separate buffer internally on an app and use the extension just simply to proxy into that buffer in the app. And so this is why I ask if it's an extension, then it's kind of relying
the multi-target system that iOS has. It extends that.
Yeah.
But they're really interesting. If you download them on Simulator, they're called web clips or whatever. And I've been thinking about that because I think See, there's also like a special meta tag that you can use in iOS Safari, which helps you link into different app clips. And then app clips they can also be tied to URLs. So potentially multiple ones, and then like you maybe hit a button on a website and that takes you to an app clip. So maybe you have the system where like some screens on your website are just like partial native apps with app clips, and the other parts of your website. That's something that I think Expo Web could do really well because it moves like between native and web really quickly. So you could do things like maybe if you make a purchase, you could have like an app clip come up and then it could like give you notifications, which is something that you don't get in iOS Safari. Or just like any other, I think there's like long lists of like features that iOS Safari is missing. So you could kind of do this quasi system to like access those native features just for like very small parts of a website.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, like again, like if this guy can make that easier too, then he's just showing off at this point. You know what I mean? He's just showing off at this point.
I just thought of it this morning, so I don't know if I can like make it easier.
So I ended up asking Evan. I'm just like, tell me more about what you do in your free time, and he just says he writes code in his free time.
Yeah, like that was a free time thing. That was just describing.
That was a free time thing he's just describing.
Yeah.
So like essentially like I've known people similar to Evan in the sense that like they're these like crazy smart hacker types that like just
flattering, but
just look at a problem and find ways to like get it to work at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like find a way to like finagle that thing to work and kind of like get it to function. And so, but like there's always these like crazy cool ideas that are kind of percolating in their heads and kind of just like listening and absorbing kind of how they're thinking about it, how they're approaching the problem, kind of what they're doing about it, how they're making it easier for the rest of us at the end of the day. To me, is just so fascinating. So yeah, good to meet you, buddy.
Yeah.
Pleasure was mine. And so I hope to see you again in Poland. And
yeah, I can't wait. Should be great.
I hope you enjoyed.
Conf if you,
App.js Conf in Poland, hosted by the Software Mansion guys. So Evan works at Expo. Software Mansion also does a lot of React Native, and
they work with us a lot too.
They work with Expo a lot, and like I think like
incredible team.
They're so nice. I mean, they're so nice. Those people that are so nice. So I guess the story that I have about them is essentially at Guild, we wanted a better way to do navigation, and so like we wanted web-based navigation because right now in the React Native space everything's very mobile centric, and doing web navigation was something very mobile centric. It just felt off. Like the state management, it never worked as we wanted it to. Like URL based routing just felt off. And so like Software Mansion folks, they came out with a lovely library called React Native URL Router. And so my good friend Lorenzo, who Evan also knows, mentioned this to me, like, hey Taz, actually Software Mansion has this library out. Maybe try using that. And I said, oh wow, like this looks super dope. Like I thought, okay, like I'll message the maintainer. I'll message Alec, the maintainer, and I'll kind of like see like how he's thinking about it, like understand a bit more like his philosophy behind it, like understand a bit more about the direction of it. Because at the end of the day, like I wanted to contribute back to it because it looked pretty new. It didn't look like it was like a very mature project yet. And so like we tried it and like it didn't work. So I wanted to like understand like how he's thinking about the problem space before like trying to like go in there and send him a bunch of pull requests, because like if we go in there and send him a bunch of pull requests and then like and then it gets rejected, then I'm just like, that's a waste of time. And so I got in touch with Alec and I'm like, hey Alec, first of all I love the library. It's super cool. It looks like exactly what we want. But I want to understand from you how to use it before kind of contributing to it, and would you be available to hop on a call sometime and maybe talk a bit more about it? And he's like, oh yeah. He messaged me back immediately. He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Let's hop on a call. Like booked in a call like the next week. And so I hop on this call with him, and he also invited Christoph, who's the director of engineering for Software Mansion. And like at that point, like not gonna lie to you, I was 100% expecting like Taz, we're a software consultancy, and if you want help from our consultancy, you can always hire us. I was expecting that type of spiel, but he did not even mention that at all. All he wanted to do, all Software Mansion wanted to do, both Alec and Christoph, all they wanted to do together was just help. They just wanted to say, hey, you're using our software. How can we help you? Are there areas that it's not working? Are there areas that it's working? But at the end of the day, they legitimately just wanted to help. And I think the really soul-nourishing thing about all of it was like they're also very involved in the community. They run app.js Conf. They're very involved in the React Native community in general, and so really they were more curious about Guild as a platform and how Guild is helping communities, and they just wanted to help the community by helping Guild at the end of the day. And I'm just like, I was like so taken aback. You know what I mean? It's so rare that you get to see such nice, friendly people that just want to help. You know what I mean? There's no monetary gain for them. There's actually, you know, there's maybe some monetary loss because they're just literally giving us like a salaried developer just to come hang out and work with us. But that just kind of goes to show you how good of people they are. You know what I mean? Like the type of agency they are, how they think about the problem, and how committed they are to community at the end of the day. I'm not going to say they're going to do the same for you. You know what I mean? I'm not going to make promises on behalf of Software Mansion, but I will say that the type of you know, reception that I received when reaching out was just astounding. And I'm not going to lie, it was really the same with Evan and the Expo team when I met them last night. So just good people all around. But yeah,
Flattering.
good to see you, buddy.
Yeah,
and I hope to see you again soon in Poland. Yeah.
Yeah, can't wait.
See you.